It all started with a casual invitation to a company party. My wife, Sarah, was always the life of the party, and I loved watching her light up any room she walked into. But this time, something felt different. She had been acting distant for weeks. Little things like her distracted gaze, her phone always facing down, and the way she avoided eye contact when we spoke about future plans. But I brushed it off as stress from work. The evening of the party arrived, and I could tell she had gone all out with her appearance. I couldn't blame her. It was a formal event. She wore that red dress I had always loved, her hair styled in ways that framed her face perfectly. As we arrived at the venue, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As soon as we entered, a man caught my eye. Tall, confident, and way too comfortable around Sarah. I had never seen him before. He looked at her with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. I made a mental note to keep an eye on him, but again, I convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. The music was pumping and the drinks were flowing. Sarah was chatting with some colleagues, but my eyes were glued to the man. He was standing too close to her. Then it happened. He reached out and asked her to dance. I saw her hesitate for just a second before she smiled and accepted. They moved to the dance floor, and I couldn't help but feel a sinking feeling in my gut. As they danced, their chemistry was undeniable. He held her a little too close, his hand lingering on her waist. I watched them move, my heart racing as jealousy and confusion set in. Sarah had always been affectionate with me, but this felt different. The way she looked at him, the way she laughed at something he said, was all too intimate. I couldn't tear my eyes away. After what seemed like an eternity, the song ended. Sarah quickly stepped away from him and turned to walk back towards me, but not before the man whispered something in her ear. I saw her face flush with a mixture of excitement and guilt. She didn't meet my eyes when she returned to the table. I had to know who he was. Who was that? I asked as calmly as I could, my voice betraying my anger. Sarah froze for a moment, clearly caught off guard by my question. She quickly dismissed it, saying it was just a colleague, but there was no denying the way she blushed when I asked. Something wasn't right. I pressed her again, but she changed the subject, and I let it go, at least for the moment. As the night progressed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us. Sarah was no longer the woman I married. She was distant, distracted, and every time I tried to initiate a conversation, her responses were short, almost rehearsed. It was like she was avoiding me. I felt like I was losing her, and it hurt more than I cared to admit. The next day, I found her phone lying on the couch. She had left the house in a rush that morning, and her phone was unlocked. I don't know what possessed me, but I picked it up. The messages were clear. I can't wait to see you tonight. I miss you. My heart sank. It was from the man at the party. My suspicions were confirmed. My wife was having an affair. I sat in silence, staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, but another part of me wanted to wait, to gather more evidence, to be sure. But how much more did I need? My wife was betraying me with someone else, and I didn't know how to deal with it. The pain was unbearable. I spent the next few days in turmoil. I didn't know whether to confront her, to ask her about the affair, or to wait until I had more concrete evidence. But every time I looked at her, I felt a growing sense of betrayal. One night, after dinner, I decided to take action. I had to know the truth, and I had to make sure I was ready for whatever came next. I waited until she was in the shower before I took her phone and scrolled through her messages again. This time, I didn't hold back. I called the number from the messages. It rang once, twice, 3 times before someone answered. It was him. I hung up immediately, heart pounding in my chest. I had caught her red-handed. That night, when Sarah came out of the shower, I didn't waste any time. I asked her point blank, "Who is he?" Her face went pale. She stammered, tried to explain, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. She didn't deny it. She didn't even try to lie. She admitted everything. The affair, the lies, the betrayal. I was shattered, but I didn't know what to do next. I left the house that night, needing space to think. I couldn't even look at her. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel or what I was supposed to do. The anger was overwhelming, but so was the sadness. I thought about what had led to this moment. Was it my fault? Had I missed the signs? After several days of soul searching, I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in this toxic relationship. I needed to take a bold step to do something that would finally bring me peace. I decided to confront my wife in front of everyone. I would expose the affair at a gathering with friends, where she couldn't hide anymore. The day of the party arrived, and I spent the entire afternoon planning my confrontation. I couldn't back down now. I had to take control of my own life again. I texted a few friends, telling them to meet at the house after the party for a casual get-together. It was the perfect opportunity. Everyone would be there, and I could finally put an end to this nightmare. At the party, I could tell Sarah was nervous. She kept checking her phone, looking over her shoulder, as if she was waiting for someone. I knew what she was doing. She was waiting for him. But this time, she wouldn't get away with it. I waited until the party was in full swing. Then, I stood up and addressed the room. "I know about the affair," I said, my voice calm but firm. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. Sarah's face went white, and the man who had been dancing with her was suddenly nowhere to be found. Sarah tried to explain, but it was too late. The damage was done. The truth was out, and there was no going back. I could see the shock and disappointment in everyone's eyes. Some of our friends tried to comfort me, while others looked away in disbelief. But I stood tall. I had taken control of the situation, and it felt empowering. That night, I packed my things and left the house. I knew it was over. There was no fixing what had been broken. I couldn't live with the woman who had betrayed me, and she couldn't live with the man I had become. It was time for both of us to move on. It wasn't easy. There were days when I wanted to call her, to beg for another chance, but I stayed strong. I focused on myself, on rebuilding my life, and on healing the wounds that had been inflicted on me. The pain didn't go away overnight, but with each passing day, it got easier. A few weeks later, I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. She was with him, the man from the party. They looked happy together, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy, but I didn't let it show. I smiled, nodded, and walked away. I had moved on. It was time for her to do the same. Looking back, I realized that this experience had taught me a valuable lesson. I had let myself be consumed by fear and doubt for so long, but now I was free. I had taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my wife, take that away from me again. I began focusing on my career and my personal growth. I started doing things that made me happy. I picked up old hobbies, met new people, and started living for myself. The pain was still there, but I was learning to embrace it and move forward. One of the friends who had been at the party reached out to me a few months later. He apologized for not speaking up sooner about Sarah's behavior. It was a weird conversation, but we ended up becoming good friends. It felt good to have someone in my corner who understood what I had been through. 6 months later, I bumped into Sarah again. This time, there was no anger or sadness, just a sense of calm. We exchanged a few words, but I could see that she had moved on, and I had too. It was clear that we were both better off apart. As time passed, I finally felt like I had closure. The affair, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it was all behind me. I had rebuilt my life, and I was proud of how far I had come. The pain had faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. I learned a lot from that experience. Trust was important, but so was self-respect. I would never again let anyone make me feel small or unworthy. I knew now that I had prioritized myself before anyone else. I didn't know what the future held, but I was excited to find out. I was ready to start a new chapter, one filled with hope and possibility. There were still scars from the past, but they no longer defined me. I had taken a bold step that night at the party. It wasn't easy, but it was the best decision I could have made. And as I moved forward, I knew one thing for sure. I would never again let anyone take away my peace. My life was mine to control, and I was going to live it on my terms. As the months went by, I realized that the bold step I had taken that night at the party was a turning point in my life. It wasn't just about confronting Sarah or exposing her betrayal. It was about reclaiming my own identity and my peace of mind. I had stood up for myself when everything felt like it was falling apart, and that single act of strength had set me on a new path. I spent the following year focusing on personal growth, surrounding myself with positive, supportive people who respected and valued me. I had learned to trust again, but more importantly, I had learned to trust myself. I wasn't the same man I was before the betrayal. I had become someone stronger, more independent, and more capable of facing life's challenges head-on. One day, I received an unexpected message from Sarah. She was apologizing, not just for the affair, but for the pain she had caused. She said she regretted everything and had learned from her mistakes. Part of me wanted to be angry, to hold on to resentment, but I had let go of that weight long ago. I had moved on, and I wasn't sure forgiveness was something I could offer her. But I didn't need to answer. The closure I had sought for so long was already within me. A few months later, I met someone new. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was something real, something healthy. She respected my boundaries, appreciated who I was, and had no interest in playing games. With her, I learned that love doesn't have to hurt, and trust can be rebuilt one small step at a time. As for Sarah, she faded into the background of my life, a chapter in my past that I no longer needed to revisit. I wished her well, but I had no desire to reconnect. We were both on different journeys now. In the end, I realized that the boldest step I had taken wasn't just confronting my wife or even leaving her. It was learning to live for myself, to put my happiness first, and to never again allow anyone to take away my peace. I had taken control of my life, and with each passing day, I walked forward, stronger, wiser, and more at peace with who I was becoming.